And included in this book is that metaphor. It's like spinning a basketball on your finger. But now there's no more game of basketball. There's no basketball in sight. No one would be motivated to do that and don't have a basketball to do it with. And all the people have memorized it, though, and they're actually using this metaphor to recruit others into a similar belief system, when none of them have spinned a basketball on their finger. Therefore, the real meaning behind that is gone. Whatever Christ said to people when he was talking with them, if that happened, of course would have been in the moment, catered to whoever he was speaking to. In addition, he was able to shape what he said. Remember, the people, if they did write it down, and I don't know how he could talk that fast and have them write it down, but nevertheless, they would take Cliff's notes, you know what I mean? They would have their experience and write it down based upon what he said. But what he said was describing what they were feeling with him. The understanding they got when he was speaking it, in that moment, in that time. So he went on using parable after parable, metaphor after metaphor, because you can only bring people to the truth with metaphor. You can't tell them the truth with metaphor like I just explained. So he'll try it again. It's like this and this. It's like this and this and this. To try to tune the mind to an experience that would be close, because you know what it's like to ride a bike, so you try to draw upon something they might have done that would assist them, that the rules and regulations of control are keeping them from knowing. You work with what you got. That's what metaphors are. An attempt to work with what you've got, with understandings that you know exist in the people that you're trying to bring to a different understanding. Does that make sense? The problem is, the majority of these used car salesmen everybody calls priests, is that they're not qualified to teach you about spirit. You've been told that they are, but they're not. Do you understand that they are practicing occult Satanism, whether they know it or not? Some of them were probably indoctrinated into Catholicism. Others were indoctrinated into Satanism and are posing as Catholic priests. Either way, they're recruiting and manipulating people with it. And if somebody does know about the occult side of it, they're not going to tell you anyway, so you have to know the truth in order to be able to see this. They're not qualified to teach you about spirit. Why? Because even if their intentions are good, they've learned about God from the Bible. And probably at an early age, so it created this rigid filter we call a belief system, trying to filter everything they experience through this indoctrinated belief system. These people aren't qualified to teach you about spirit any more than somebody's qualified to teach you how to ride a bike who's only read a book about riding a bike, and a fraudulent one at that, and has never ridden one themselves. They're not qualified. But because the mind control is so stiff and so strong, and there's so much fear of the unknown attached to it, the people that desperately want to ride a bike but have been programmed with this would rather kill somebody who can show them how to ride the bike because of the fear and the mind control, which is what happened to Christ. Those people didn't do a thing about it. When you get these high priests that killed him, and they say, well, no, the Romans killed him. The high priests didn't kill him. Yeah, they did. What they did with Christ is no different than what they did with Lee Harvey Oswald. The Romans were the fall guys. They used manipulation and political pressure and sorcery of the mob mentality, fascism existing back then, to put pressure on the Romans to carry out their dirty work. That's what happened. And they can argue it all they want. It's what they do. That's why they argue. That's all they can do, is argue. And eventually they can't answer these questions anymore, so they just talk over you. Or, I love this one, you're crazy, you need some therapy, Generally, the people that run the world will come off as the nice ones. Everything they'll say about their group is always going to be, of course, nice, and anybody who says anything against their group is, of course, insane. The implication is they're insane, and the group will always be nice about it. You know, I care about you. You seem to be having some mental problems. You might benefit from some therapy. And you create this fraudulent pseudoscience they call psychology, and you indoctrinate the public into its credibility so that you can draw upon it whenever you are discovered. Because your control is outside of their ability to perceive, it works beautifully. You witness this all the time, whether you know it or not. I get a kick out of people thinking the Antichrist is going to be some sort of person with a title. No, it's this collective consciousness I've been telling you about. Anybody who is against the teachings of Christ. What's another way of saying against Christ? Antichrist. So, if you know anybody that's even publicly against, does not adhere to, or denies the teachings, not the man, the teachings, they are the Antichrist. The rise of the Antichrist, if I said the Asian flu is on the rise, I'm not talking about one individual virus, I'm talking about the collective strain, including all of the viruses in that strain. Do you understand that? The rise of man doesn't mean the rise of one man. So, the Antichrist consciousness and control system here was already there back then. The Antichrist, or diseased cancerous consciousness, is what murdered him then, and it has risen since. And those who are in control of the world are Antichrist. It's obvious. But I don't talk about who they are at all, because I know that if people can't see it for themselves, telling them is useless. Therefore, I try to get you to be able to see the truth first. Like an MD cannot understand disease until they understand how the body works when it's not diseased. Does that make sense to you? If you don't understand normal homeostatic function in the body, how can you possibly interpret what the disease is if you don't know how the body works when it's normal? And it's obvious that nobody can see who it is, so telling them is useless. You have sorcery being practiced on you. You have all kinds of control methods you couldn't even comprehend. My goal is not to attack anybody. My goal is to fix this whole thing. I don't want to get out and escape it, because it will still exist. And believe me, if I'm being shown what's going on, that means something larger isn't happy with this situation either. So, it's not going anywhere. Look, if you want to know the nature of a priest, just ask him 3 questions. Go up to a priest and say, real innocently, just go up to the Catholic priest with his black and white, the dark side of the yin-yang, right? Black and white uniform. Or his robe as he's burning incense. All of these things you're warned about in the Bible. However, mind control works, doesn't it? No Christian is able to put 2 and 2 together. Forget about whether they thought of doing it.